What's up, my friends in film fandom, wherever you may be and however you may be listening? Thank you so much for giving us just a little bit of your time. Boy, the cordyceps are working overtime in this most recent episode of The Last of Us. This is Last of Us Episode 8, When We Are in Need is the name of the episode. And boy, it's they're kicking up the stakes to this real high in this episode. I thought it was fantastic. And here to discuss it with me, as always, is my hetero life mate, Jeremy. What's up with you, my man?
Not much. I said it was going to happen. I told y'all it was going to pop off. Like a kneecap off of somebody's leg, and it sure did. And
if you know, you know.
Yeah, don't worry, that ball's going to keep rolling.
Well, let's give you a quick breakdown as to what this episode is all about. Ellie leaves Joel, who is still recovering, to hunt for food in the basement of the house that they have taken shelter in. After shooting a deer, she tracks the wounded animal and encounters a preacher named David and his fellow hunter James. We'll talk about them in just a second. She ends up trading the deer for some penicillin to help Joel heal. David reveals that the man who stabbed Joel was a member of his group, and Ellie leaves to treat Joel. The next day, she discovers that David and his men have followed her to seek vengeance on Joel. She flees to draw them away, but is captured. At David's camp, he reveals he has been feeding his group human flesh. Meanwhile, Joel awakens and tortures some of David's men into telling him Ellie's whereabouts. David and James attempt to kill Ellie, but she kills James and escapes. David hunts her down, but she overpowers him and kills him with a meat cleaver many times over, for those of you who saw the episode. Joel finds a traumatized Ellie outside the cult's burning community center and comforts her. And then, of course, he puts the coat around her and they walk off into the frozen wilderness to whatever is going to come next in episode 9. Boy, oh boy, it was a lot. Like I said, as I read that paragraph, I realize that it doesn't really do what happened in this episode justice. I mean, this was, I put it out on Twitter right after I watched it. I said, this has quickly, as soon as I got done watching it, it quickly became my favorite episode of this series so far. I can't. It seems like every episode tends to add a little something to the lore, adds a little something to what we're getting. I don't know. It's fantastic. I mean, what are some quick general thoughts on the episode to you, Jack?
Yeah, and obviously from the game side, which is the lens I'm seeing it through, it hit pretty hard multiple times in the face.
With a cleaver.
Yeah, with a meat cleaver. I'm not gonna be nitpicky. It was a machete in the game, but all the same, man. That, like I said, I think that moment in the game is like kind of the midpoint. That's your fever pitch. That's your peak of the, I mean, good God. And that is where it ends. It ends with Joel finding Ellie again. And it's just like, my God, that's probably one of the worst situations you could find yourself in. And at least it gives you, it finally, him finding her again. I think they've finally come to fully, care for one another, because it's important. He calls her baby girl for the first time.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
Yeah, that's a moment, man. Like, he's finally, the last time he probably said that was 20 years ago to his own daughter. So it's like they've finally come full circle. Because like she finally like gets out of her rage for a hot second and then realizes it's Joel and just collapses into him, gives him a hug. I mean, good Lord. This was good.
Yeah, it was another huge step in the evolution of their personal relationship. Obviously, one that Joel had been fighting for a lot of reasons, still harbors a lot of emotions about his daughter, understandably. Ellie being an emotional teenager, under the most benign circumstances, being a teenage girl could be kind of a rough ride. Yeah. But, also having to deal with that, while going through this craziness that's going on in the world. She's very emotional. And at times, I think those two emotions have clashed. But but over time, over the course of their journey, they've been together. I mean, I know it's only been 8 episodes for us, but I mean, they've been together for almost a year.
Almost.
I mean, in Showtime, it's been almost a year.
Yeah.
So I mean, this relationship has really evolved a lot. But one of the things that first thing I wanted to point out that really shows in this relationship is the role of Joel and Ellie very much reversed in this episode.
Yes.
Joel is very much the one who is fragile and needs protecting, and Ellie absolutely steps into the role. I mean, you got a hint of this when they were talking around the campfire when he fell asleep a couple episodes ago.
Yeah,
about how it was obvious that she was learning some things by watching Joel.
yeah.
But I mean, the role reversal in this episode was very, very thick. Obviously, he needs the protecting. He's the one that's vulnerable, and she steps up in that role. She not only goes hunting, but she actually handles that situation when she meets David and James pretty well. I mean, she controlled these two grown men from being able to get the drop on her at all. I mean, what did you think of the big role reversal, at least for this episode between the two characters?
It was awesome. I was looking forward to it because quite literally, that's what happens in the game. That's the first time. I mean, you're playing as Joel through up until that point, and then like all of a sudden, like I said, it opens up on Winter, and then you see Ellie hunting, and we almost got it again. We saw her point that gun at that little bunny. I'm like, are you gonna do it again? Because that's also if you know, you know. But we didn't get that, unfortunately. And then the game takes over, and then you realize, oh my god, I'm playing as Ellie, and it's like, holy crap! I mean, I wasn't expecting that, and it was a welcome surprise. And then, like you said, it's hilarious that you see some time had passed. It hadn't been snowing yet, so there's been time where she's, I mean, rightfully so, she's freaked out when Joel got hurt to a point where he's just laid up in a house. With Ellie to take care of him. So it's nice that she got into that role and then is able to, and in the game, she actually had a bow. She didn't even have a gun. She had the drop on these two guys with a bow. Same exchanges. But it's pretty funny that she did all the right things. Like, no, I don't trust you. I'm not telling you my name. I'm not going anywhere with you. Your buddy's going to go get this. I'll take shelter with you, but hey, yeah, like I said, some time has passed. She's kind of gotten into like even though she's scared of being alone, that's the one thing she's scared of. But she's at least been able to take care of not only herself but Joel as well when he can't.
Yeah, it's the role reversal I thought was pretty interesting. And again, I know as you get through the first game and into the second game, and what eventually I'm sure we'll get the third game, you're seeing not your time passes for everybody, including Ellie. So she goes from being 14. I think at some point by the time you end the second game, isn't she like 20 or in her early 20s?
Yeah, but like we said, the first game takes place over a year. She's 15 at the end of the first game, and then in the second game, 5 years has passed since, and she's in her early 20s. Yeah, I don't remember how much time passed in the first game. It wasn't a whole lot, but Seattle only has one season, which is just rain. So I can't really tell how much time had passed. But I mean, it's beautiful to see. I mean, you really think, this city would get completely flooded almost because of how much rain there is and no one to take care of it. So if you imagine that, it's a pretty beautiful set in the second game. But we'll get there when we get there. Ellie's like 20, maybe close to 21 in the second game. So there are hints of it. I mean, I even said it out loud when David tells her, like, oh, you've got a violent heart. Like, I can tell. I'm like, I was like, did you play the second game, dude? Oh, my God. She'll scare you.
Nothing yet.
Yeah, I'm like, she'll scare you a little bit. God damn.
Well, yeah, like I said, she's evolving in this crazy situation where it seems, like I said 100 times, in situations like this, I would be every bit afraid of other human beings as I would be the zombies or the infected, because, I mean, people will do anything if they have to do to survive in situations like that. Yeah, so you're really fighting a war on two fronts.
Especially, religious cannibals. The best.
Yeah, especially religious cannibals. But, the other thing I noticed is we find ourselves in a place in this episode called Silver Lake. Now, this is the area that David and his flock, we'll call them, have kind of taken over and made their home. It's not nearly as secure as Jackson, but, that we saw a couple episodes ago where Tommy is hanging out with his family, all his crew. But these places, again, it's a complete reversal of what we got from Jackson. This place is, essentially, it's run by David, who is running it kind of like a cult. Yeah. These people they haven't figured out a good way to make life work. They're struggling a lot. They don't really know how to. Maybe they weren't exactly prepared for the apocalypse. I guess nobody would be, but
no.
I mean, they're struggling a lot just to have enough food to get through winter and stuff like that. And they talk a little bit early in the episode about how they've only got a couple weeks of food left to feed the group, and if they're lucky, even if they ration and things like that. So they're in a really bad spot. Yeah, I thought it was interesting how we went from a place like Jackson to a place like this that is completely disheveled. Again, another kind of culture shock that this episode gave us. I mean, did you get that from seeing kind of the way that Silver Lake was running as well?
Yeah, it's seeing how, I mean, that's always the interesting thing about apocalypses, is seeing how people survive and what they do, how they end up and how they, handle it. It's like, you'd like to think, I mean, there's a psychological hurdle, and that's a big fucking hurdle to start eating people. I mean, knowingly or not, I mean, I don't know. So that's a pretty big thing. And I know David tries to say, like, well, it was a last resort. Do you think that doesn't shame me? I'm like, well, it should, man. But you seem kind of just like, oh yeah, well, Tuesdays we're having, Jerry over here, and then Wednesday we're going to have Mary. You know what I mean? But Jesus, man. But it's kind of interesting to see how people at least try to hold on to it and try to make everything work, even if it is kind of communism. I don't know. Is that communism or cannibalism? Which way do you want to roll the dice?
Well, oddly enough, the communism seems to be working better.
Weirdly enough, yes. I mean,
as much as a freedom-loving guy like me hates to admit it.
You'd be Tommy in that situation, huh? You're just kind of like, no, damn it, damn it.
I'm gonna call it a commune, but not communism. I won't go that far.
Yeah, we're not there yet.
But I'll go ahead and go to David. This is the main protagonist of this episode, and if this isn't,
he's a bad dude.
If this isn't the bad guy to end all bad guys, I mean,
yeah.
Basically, what it is David is the person who has not been elected to be a ruler. He's kind of like Tommy in a way that he just kind of ended up taking charge in the group and kind of giving them some leadership. The problem is whereas somebody like Tommy has good intentions to help these people survive and grow, David really kind of doesn't. we kind of learn a lot about this guy really, really fast as we move on in this episode. He obviously was a kind of a dick bag before the virus even started. I mean, from the one of the scenes that's most telling, I think, is when you realize that he's talking to the girl in the beginning of the episode about her dad dying, and there's this kind of thing later on where they find that after they've come across Ellie, and they said that they're the ones that probably killed her dad and what that, and she jumps up, she's like, you need to kill him right now, and he slaps her right down to the ground.
Yeah.
And I was like, the difference between a guy like Tommy and a guy like Joel is a guy like Tommy would be like, I understand, but we're going to make sure we handle this in a way that is still dignified because we can't lose our humanity. This guy didn't seem to have a whole lot of humanity to begin with. He slaps her right down to the ground, and instead of kind of giving her some comfort in the moment, which most people would have, he flat out says, you may have lost your father, but your dad, but you still have a father. I'm the one in charge here. I run you now. And that had David Koresh vibes all over it. I mean, because what's going on in Silver Lake is not a cult necessarily. It's just a lot of people who are, it's not like that. I don't think a lot of these people were really there by choice necessarily. They're not there because he went out and convinced these people that living with him was going to be a good idea to help them survive. I think most, if not all of these people that are in this Silver Lake community, I think they're there because they don't have any other options. They're there because what are you going to do? Are you going to take your wife and your kid or two and you're going to leave in the middle of winter with barely any food anyway? If you stayed there, you had no food. I doubt they're going to give you anything to leave with.
Well, there's this nice, there's this nice place in Wyoming, though.
Yeah. Well, they don't quite know about it, though. As far as anybody knows, they're going to cross a river of death. So maybe they're here and they're going in that direction is a good idea. True. But yeah, this guy obviously was someone who just kind of took over the leadership role where a lot of people just didn't think to do it. And the power went to his head. And it's pretty clear that he was a dick, kind of like I said, he was a dick bag before the apocalypse, the virus apocalypse. And he had some issues. I mean, for one, he wants to keep Ellie alive. Now, at first, you got to think that maybe it's because the illusion is that maybe he's feeling a little sorry for her and he's got some scruples and he doesn't want to kill a child. But as you get on, you kind of realize maybe there's other reasons he wants to keep her around. Maybe he's kind of a perv. I don't want to use the P word because they
right there. I was like, I think my mom just said it flat out. I'm like, yeah, he's creepy, man.
Yeah, but yeah, there's obviously a little something about him that does not strike you right pretty quickly. I mean, and also on top of that, he mentions that he found God after the outbreak, and not that he was not a man of God before, that he found it after. And I'm thinking, and I kind of thought to myself, I was like, that kind of makes sense, because a lot of people would probably say that after something like that, they would find Jesus as a way to kind of cope with it all, or find religion,
or you might lose it after.
But before. Possible, but I do feel like that this guy, that I mean, that doesn't say it directly over the course of the episode, but it does seem to me like he didn't exactly find God because it was going to help him cope with the situation that everybody's dealing with. He found God because it was a way for him to assume power and to take control over this entire group of people, to give him what he wanted out of it all. If not regular food, then at least just that uber control that he probably enjoyed over somebody before the outbreak. I don't know. What are some of your thoughts on the character of David? I think he's probably the best bad guy we've gotten from this thing all year.
Yeah. In terms of the first game, like I said, I think David is definitely the peak of like bad guys, especially human threats. It's this guy sold it pretty well, because it's kind of the same way in the game. He presents as like, it's like he's very, I don't say soft spoken, but kind of kind spoken, and tries to reason with Ellie, tries to make himself present as like a good person. And I mean, even the only thing different than when I was watching Ellie confront James and David was like, she pretty much did everything. I'm like, if I came across that, I'd probably be doing the same thing. I'm like, all right, drop your shit, step away from it. That was pretty smart. She even pulled the bolts and like ejected all their rounds, which was smart. Told him, okay, back up further, get away from me. But when he said, I want 10 seconds, I'd be like, no, shut up. I wouldn't have let him talk. I'm like, no, stop talking. Just, but he has this weird calmness to him, which is also a layer of creepy when, seeing the full image of David is just weird, man. Like, it's, I don't want to say like Kane the Conqueror type, but you know what I mean? Like, he's level-headed, but he'll say some shit that will just give you chills.
Well, it's kind of like Nurse Ratched in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. One of the things that makes her such a great villain is that entire movie, she doesn't raise her voice. She never yells. She's that very,
eyebrow though.
She's very stoic, very in control, very. She even uses at times that soft womanly voice to kind of like to act like it's trying to calm you, but really it's just it's lulling the audience in that false sense of security that if she's not yelling, she's not violent. And I was getting a lot of that vibe from him. He's putting off that preacher vibe at first.
Yeah.
But as you get farther and farther in this episode, you're like, things aren't really adding up with this cat. So I don't know if this soft-spoken man of God, if this is just the front to something really, really dastardly. And
yeah, it's, I was going to say, I think way back, I mean, because this was about that time too, 2013, when I played the game for the first time. I think around that time, right? Maybe that might have been a little bit after. On The Walking Dead, we had the governor, kind of one of the first big human villains. And David reminded me of him a little bit, because I'm like, it's just, if you came across this town, it presents as like, oh, look, they have buildings, they have, they have food, they have people. And David presents as like, oh, this kind of nice guy that seems reasonable. But then once you start to see it and it unhinges, it's like, oh, shit, this is a bad guy. I don't think the cannibals in Walking Dead were there yet, but I'm like, yeah, if you mix like the governor and then like the cannibals from the train station, that's pretty much what you get with David. So that's how I took it. It's like presenting in one way, and then it's like, oh, once it starts to unhinge, it unhinges pretty fast. It's not a place you want to be.
Yeah, another thing I realized about David is him and Kathleen are kind of a lot alike. Both of them are. Well, I don't think that Kathleen. Well, I mean, she was a bad person, a bad guy, kind of because of the circumstance. He was kind of a bad guy all the time.
Yeah.
Like if the world had to come to a crushing end the way it does, you figure Kathleen would probably be living a pretty well-adjusted life somewhere, whereas this guy would probably still be kidnapping kids in his windowless van and doing terrible things. But
yeah.
But it's like but they're a lot alike in the fact that neither one of them really have the best interests of other people at heart in where they're at right now. Kathleen obviously had revenge on her mind first and foremost on Henry for all that stuff. And this guy, obviously, I don't think it's pretty clear that he's kind of out to fulfill his own needs and desires rather than being out for, trying to help this community that he's a part of survive and grow and prosper under these bad circumstances. Both of them are just really bad at making these decisions. They're not quality leaders. They're not out for their people. And that's ultimately what ends up kind of being their downfall in the end. I mean, because both Kathleen, with the way things go in that episode for her, and with David suffering a pretty terrible fate at the end of this episode.
Pretty rad fate, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, it seems like both of them ended up where they ended up because they were not experienced leaders, but really more to the point. I don't think you have to be an experienced leader to put other people first, to put other people ahead, to worry about the welfare of others. These two obviously didn't do it, and then ultimately ended up being their downfall. I mean, is that a comparison that you think is fair?
Yeah, when we were talking about the way you were talking about with Nurse Ratched, it's a pretty good example because then in my head when you were explaining that, I went back to Kathleen and we talked about how she had that kind of more soft tone when she spoke to people. It was kind of it was that same kind of thought, and they both just kind of happened into being the leader of these groups, which is actually now you think about it, it's kind of hilarious. Kathleen. Her right hand guy was Tommy, and David's right hand guy was Joel. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah,
I just realized that.
Interesting juxtaposition. I like that.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Good choices, guys.
Yeah, that's good cast. I mean, obviously you wanted them to be involved somehow because we're going to be getting the girl. We're going to be getting Ashley Johnson in the next episode too.
Yes.
I mean, that's pretty much known by everybody by now. But yeah, it's interesting that they worked all three of them in almost, well, at least the two guys anyway, in very similar roles.
Yeah, because I was wondering. I just now caught that. I'm wondering if maybe some of the other guys that we may not know are like they may have done motion capture for like clickers, or maybe some of the other bad guys in the game or something. Like they may be there and I don't even know it. So I would like to think I was like when I was watching these guys of David's go around house to house looking for Joel, I'm like, I wonder if one of these guys was like also in the game, maybe. But obviously we know that the three heavy hitters, Ellie, Joel, and Tommy, which is that's still cool.
Yeah, before I move off of David and talk about James, I want to ask you, as someone who played the game, how big of a role did David play in the game? Because we're only really getting him for this one episode, as it were, because we'll talk about in a minute how things ended for him in this episode. But I was wondering if his one episode that we're going to get him in the show is equivalent to what his overall appearance was in the game.
It's pretty. Yeah, I was expecting when I saw the trailer, I saw David. I figured that'd be the whole episode, which, to be fair, is pretty accurate. I said the timing is a little different, but you spend most of the winter section of the game. I mean, it is straight out. Winter opens up. The meme we've all seen, the little bunny in the snow, and then just the arrow goes through it. You see Ellie hunting, and then she's like, she sees the deer, and then like that's when you start playing as Ellie, and I'm like, oh my God, everyone's freaking out, like, oh my God, you're Ellie. You find the deer, you kill the deer, you're tracking it through the snow, and then you come across David and James. And I'm like, oh, well, I don't know who this guy, who is this fun guy,
Fun guy, get it?
I didn't even catch that.
That wasn't even playing, was it?
That was good. But yeah, and that is the whole section. And I was thinking along the lines of this show is what, 9 hours, and the game you spend about 15. So with some things cut out, I mean, this isn't too bad of a representation of the game, because obviously bigger sections you play through. Like I said, we saw the tunnel with Henry and Sam. You see it for 5 minutes. I'm like, no, you spend there's a whole thing you do in the tunnels. There's a whole thing when, like I said, right after that, Ellie and David take shelter. I'm kind of surprised they cut this out, because something I'm sure we're about to talk about. Part of the something Joel told her, never tell anyone about your condition, but that was the smartest fucking move she ever did. And that was awesome. There's something they cut out that I think maybe would have given it more weight, because in the game they get attacked. Because obviously you got to have some action with it. David and Ellie get attacked in that little shelter by some clickers and some infected. They escape, they weasel their way out, and then they had that conversation about the campfire. So like, you've been with this guy for a little bit, and he still hasn't had that, that bomb drop, which is still an oh shit moment when he tells like, hey, so winter's been pretty cool. but we didn't expect it to be this bad. I sent some guys out that didn't come back. Funny enough, it was some guy with some girl. I'm like, I mean, she does the same thing. She gets up like, oh shit. Well, this is not a situation I want to be in. And I think you play as Joel a little bit. Like in the scene we saw, he goes to the town. So it's all building up into this moment. And that is that's the entire section of it. So you spend a good few hours with it, but this hit all the right, plot points of that section. At least to me. It's like I said, getting a good villain, and that's kind of your mid peak of the game, starting to go downhill into spring, into the end, when you find the light. And I can't believe I just said that. Somebody break my jaw. I said it.
Well, the David's right-hand man is James, who is played in this by why am I drawing a blank in his name?
Troy Baker. Son.
Troy Baker. I don't know
Troy
why it took me a minute
Baker.
to come up with that name. Yes, I think the character he plays is fantastic because he's not just the right-hand man to David. He's kind of conflicted about some of this stuff because it's pretty clear that while a few people know about the whole feeding the people other people thing,
feed the people.
Not everybody is in on the menu, so to speak. Not everybody really knows the secret ingredient. So
Soylent Green.
He's one of the few people that does.
Oh yeah,
and he's really conflicted about it all. One of the great things, I wish I could have gotten a screenshot of this, is after they. The guy walks in with that bus tub full of fresh cut meat, and the girl says, "What's this?" And he goes, venison. And we know. I mean, the girl didn't know, but we knew. And
I was kind of hopeful. I'm like, they did get the deer. I'm like, I don't know. And then you see him dragging that deer. I'm like, oh fuck, damn it, oh god.
One of the great shots though is because he knows. I mean, he understands what the situation is. He goes and takes a bite of that meat and real slowly puts it in his mouth, knowing exactly what's going on with the story.
You can see it in his face.
And he takes a small bite and he just kind of goes like this, and he's like, I don't know if I can really do this or not. And he kind of forces himself to eat it. It was a really quick shot, but I thought it was fantastic because he really is conflicted. He actually voices his.
That's the first conversation him and David had. He's like, "Oh, I see some doubt in you."
Yeah,
I'm like.
And it's interesting because whereas you want to call him Pope, I know it's not right. The guy
that's Fear the Walking Dead.
Yeah, Kathleen's that guy right.
Or no, that's not Fear. That was Walking Dead. The guy's name is Pope. I'm just like, God damn it, getting shows mixed up already.
But Price,
David.
Price. Yeah, David.
Oh, Price.
But whereas he has some reservations as to how she's handling things, but ultimately I think he knows he's going to come down on her side, and he's not really going to feel bad about it. He's not that conflicted. But David clearly has. I mean, I think it's pretty clear that because he's in a very bad situation, they all are there at Silver Lake, that he's like that if things really got to a bad point, he would 100% turn on David if he thought it needed to happen. But he just hasn't gotten to that point yet. Yeah, he definitely vocalizes and shows in his body language that he's not, from the beginning of this episode to the end, he's not exactly sure of David, his leadership, his decision-making. And I think that the only reason why he does it at some point in this episode is look at him and say, hey, dude, you're not in charge here anymore. I've got to step in and push you aside and try to right the ship a little bit. But the only reason that doesn't happen in this episode is because, Ellie puts that meat cleaver in his neck at one point. We'll talk about that here in a second. But I mean, it's his hesitation to shoot Ellie. Because when they first find Ellie, she gets on the horse and tries to ride away to draw the guys away from Joel. They shoot the horse and
God damn it.
and capture her. And as she's laying there on the ground unconscious after falling over, then somebody's like, go ahead and shoot her. And he's just like, I don't know if I want to or not. Then obviously David stops him. But also it's a couple of conversations he has with David.
I was going to say, when he tells him, like, maybe it's the will of God, and he just stops and, like, looks at him. I'm like, yeah. I was like, but you can't spout that shit. And then when something bad happens to you and you're like, maybe it's the will of God, and you can't get mad. Come on, you old
there was a lot of times where he was hesitant to, he tried to push back on David a little bit and say, hey, I don't know if this is the right thing, and I want to have this conversation. But David kind of squashed the conversation before it could really happen. I really liked it. I really liked his role in this. I love how conflicted he was. I love the job that he did acting out the role.
Oh yeah.
I wish there was more that we were going to see of him, because I really feel like he could have done something more long term in the show. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. He ends up getting his. We'll talk about it in a minute. But what did you think of him coming in and playing this character of James?
Man, I mean, it's Troy Baker. I'm not gonna say no. I was excited. I didn't know what character he was gonna play when I saw him in the previews, and I'm like, oh crap, it's the David episode. And I was like, at first I thought, oh shit, is he gonna play David? That'd be wild. I thought that'd be kind of fun. Because that would mean, I mean, as we're probably gonna talk about, we see some pretty heavy interactions with David and Ellie. So I thought that'd be kind of fun to play around with. But I mean, James is a character in the game. He's there in those pivotal situations with David. But it was kind of nice. It's funny because he said like, "Oh, I'm not playing a good guy this time." Like seeing it through a different lens is kind of fun. I'm like, yeah, it's funny seeing you now be, well, kind of not a good guy, but not really a bad guy. You know, and it's funny. I could when I watched it again, I was like, I can almost hear Joel's voice. You close your eyes, you can almost just hear Joel from the game in there. It's kind of awesome. Yeah, it's a cool dynamic seeing him and then David seems a little more far gone than everybody else in the group. And it's something else I noticed when David picks up Ellie and takes off with her, and he says like, all right, 2 of you come with me, the rest of you take the horseback, you guys go search the houses. You even kind of see him stand there like, and he looked like David's walking off and he's just standing there like like, God damn it. Then he takes off. I assume he takes the horse or something. But yeah, I'm not going to say no to more Troy Baker. Although, I mean, we can't get him now, but
yeah, it's not up to us, unfortunately. But yeah, it was actually really, really good.
And he had fun. All the behind the scenes stuff. He had a fucking blast. I love that. He's like, I'm walking around with a fucking meat cleaver in my neck all day. I'm like, yeah, just casually, you know, like a big prosthetic and a magnetic knife into his neck.
But you know, they get Ellie back into town, and the whole scene with her, like when they have her locked up in that cell, that's really where you see the kind of person David is, but also you see like Ellie's bravery is ratcheted up to like level 13 on this one. I mean, she was taking no shit from this guy at all.
Yeah.
And it's like he even and it was funny because he was trying to draw these comparisons from the cordyceps virus itself and God, saying like, oh, the cordyceps virus, it spreads, it loves blood. He's got to give this existential thing when really all he's trying to do is he's just trying to worm his way into her heart just enough to where he could do terrible things to her and keep her around. At this point, it becomes pretty clear why he wanted to keep Ellie around.
He ain't just trying to worm into her heart, you know. We're trying to worm somewhere else.
Yeah, but I love the way that these two going against one another in these scenes. Yeah. I mean, it starts out with the scene where they're around the campfire early on in the episode when he sends James to go get the medicine, and they're just sitting there around the fire talking. It's like that back and forth dialogue I thought was really good. It was really tense. I liked it. But this scene when she's in the cell and they're going back and forth, I mean, she does not back down from him one bit. Not just the character of Ellie, but the girl that plays her. I mean, that was a hell of an acting job for a 14-year-old. Now, granted, she's got some experience doing some heavy shit from being on Game of Thrones. This Bella Ramsey girl, but
Bella Ramsey's like 19, but still, it's like you forget she's even like that young. You're just like, oh my Jesus Christ, right?
Yeah, I just love that entire scene, especially when you see that moment to where like their hands are starting to kind of touch a little bit. You start to wonder if maybe she's not falling under his spell, and then she just like bends his fingers up and cracks one of his fingers up, and I'm like, yeah,
I knew
your shit, bro.
I knew what was coming. I'm like, come on, do it. I was waiting for the fucking finger break. I even said the line. I mean, I'm watching the show, you know, right at 9:00, and I said I'm like, I know she's gonna say the line. When she finally tells him her name, it's like, you go tell him Ellie's the one who broke your fucking finger. Like blood dripping out of her mouth, man. Like I know he mentions like, people being animals. And I'm like, was that not pretty fucking animalistic? Jesus, I like Ellie's got blood running down her fucking face. She's like screaming at this guy through this cage. Like, damn.
Yeah, that was
that's also the big bomb reveal too. If you see the cute little ear in the corner, I'm like, oh, that's lovely.
yeah.
Great. I'm probably in this cage where someone else got killed. So
yeah, the other thing about James is like the moment where they get Ellie on the slab and David's getting ready to take the knife to her. It's like that was the point where you felt like if Ellie had not come out and said that she was infected and tried to change the status quo of the situation a little bit to give herself a chance, that maybe James wouldn't have kind of tried to stop David at that point anyway. I mean, obviously that's not what happened, but you feel like that maybe had that played out differently, that James might have finally stood up to David at that point, been like, hey, wait a minute, we're talking about a kid here. and if you really want to be godly, if you really want to be forgiving and whatever, so understanding and loving, maybe you don't want to hack up a 14-year-old girl and feed her to these people, especially considering they just got a deer and a horse in the last couple of days. If you're going to feed to last a little while,
yeah.
But
and I don't know if they quite know yet. I'm like, yeah, all your guys didn't come back from town. So
yeah, they must not have figured that part out either.
Maybe Joel's out there doing some shit, and oh my good God, that scene.
Yeah.
But
awesome. But yeah, that was pretty crazy. Now let's go on to Joel for just a minute. Now that you bring that up, he finally has recovered enough over the early in the episode to where he hears somebody coming in the house. Ellie does her best to kind of hide that door, but obviously somebody sees it for dramatic effect. It starts to make their way downstairs in the basement where he walks down there, and of course we see that makeshift bed, that mattress on the floor that Joel had been resting on for I don't know how long, and there's nobody laying there, so we know he's somewhere. And obviously he comes out of the shadow and stabs this guy right in the neck. So while still wounded and not quite at full strength, he is still a dangerous individual. And now, not only that, is he not just trying to protect her, he's trying to rescue her, which ratchets up the level a little bit more in him. I mean, he turned that up to 11 too. So yeah, that was some dark shit. I mean, I've seen a lot of torture scenes in movies, but I mean, this guy sitting somebody over there in the corner so he can watch him stab his other buddy in the knee, and then
make him put that knife
and put it in his mouth and said, "Point to where it is in this map. Leave your dot of blood on this map where I need to go." I was like, "Damn, that is some fucking crazy hardcore shit."
Yeah,
but I mean, we definitely see Joel step up to another level in his effort to try to figure out what he's got to do to rescue Ellie from this situation that he knows nothing about. Yeah. I mean, all he knows is that guys with guns. He doesn't know the cannibalism. He doesn't know David's other intentions with her. He doesn't know any of this stuff. All he knows is Ellie's not right by me, and she's my ward. I have to protect her. So he's just trying to get her and at least make sure she's in a safe position. And this is where he's willing to go. This is how far he's willing to go.
Yeah,
it was some crazy shit. I mean, what are some of your thoughts on him finally getting back at least a little bit in the game shape and wrecking a couple of things?
Yeah, how Joel got his groove back. Man, it's like it made me really excited. Like he comes down there and like you don't see him on the bed. I'm like, oh, where is he? Go on, do it. You're just cheering for this guy. And that was a visceral scene, dude. He stabs that guy in the neck and then just like takes him to he falls down with him. And just that he's like staring at Joel in the face and the blood running down his fucking mouth and out of his neck and he's just frozen like that. I'm like, Jesus Christ, that's horrifying. I'm like, I think he's dead. I'm like, I mean, people, you just kind of freeze up. You don't, your eyes are open and he's just kind of still in that mode of, he's probably trying to fight through it. But I mean, you don't fight through having a neck right there in your knife in your neck bleeding out like that. So, but yeah, I didn't know if they were going to do it because I mentioned it before. They kind of had the same conversation with the elderly couple because I'm like, oh, that might have been. I was like, oh, not that HBO wouldn't go there, but I was like, oh, they're not going to do point to this place and your wife better point to the same place too. I'm like, oh, that's funny. That happened later. I'm like, yeah, but it was a lot darker. I'm like, oh, holy shit. Oh, we did it for real. And it's funny to see. I guess that's a cool duality then where it's like, oh, these people obviously don't mean harm. I mean, the lady fed me soup. Because it was cold. I don't think these guys were stopping by for soup. They had something else on the menu. So, yeah, seeing it go to that, I'm like, okay, see, I'm like, I think we need to see this, these dark sides that come out of, I mean, both of them, honestly. Seeing Joel, like I said, that's some fucked shit. When you, like I said, you tie the other guy and make him watch, you can't really see because he got his back, his buddy's back turned to him. You just know he's stabbing shit through his knee, about to pop it off, puts it in his mouth, tells him to mark it with his own blood. I'm like, good God. And I knew it was coming because like I've seen the scene in the game, and he kills him, and he's like, "Fuck you, man! He told you what you wanted. I'm not gonna tell you shit." And he's like, "That's okay, I believe him." Cracks him on the head. Like, yes. And that was left out. Like they do play as Joel for a sec, and like you do go through the town. It's blowing snow, and you can't hardly see shit. It's you trying to fight to get further into the town to find Ellie. So it didn't need to be seen, but because. I mean, we all want to see this little 14-year-old girl fucking go ham on the other Joel and the creepy David. So, like I said, I'm sure we're gonna say something about it here in a second, but very, very smart on Ellie's part to get away from this situation as she did.
Yeah, let's go ahead and go to that now. Ellie gets dark. I mean, we've seen a lot of her emotional ride over the course of all this. I mean, early on in the seasons, like when she finds the video game at that abandoned gas station, she starts pressing buttons, kind of playing around like she was actually playing it. And then obviously we get, her in the mall with Riley and playing the video games and things like that.
Playing soccer with Sam, reading the comic book. Yeah.
Yeah, stuff like that. But I mean, the last couple episodes, I mean, especially the stuff that went on with Henry and Sam. Henry and Sam, and the stuff that went on that happens in this episode, not to mention kind of maybe some of the emotional damage that has come from the whole incident with Riley. Yeah. And we still don't exactly know how that situation played itself out. They haven't visualized that yet.
She died.
Maybe they won't. I have a feeling they won't until season 2. Like maybe how that situation played itself out is going to relate to a plot point in season 2. But I mean, we could see something about it next week.
I'm going to be honest. I think I only played the DLC maybe once, maybe twice. I'm pretty sure. I mean, like she obviously didn't make it. Because
that's my question is, did she get infected and then Ellie just walked away and let her do whatever, or did she kill herself maybe, because that was an option that she put out there? Did Ellie kill her after she turned? I mean, we don't know, and I think that might be significant down the line. But I mean, again, I don't think it's going to be in the last episode of the season. I think it might be something that attaches itself to a plot point next season.
I know I'm a bad Last of Us fan. I don't fucking remember what happened. Like I know she died, but I'm having a hard time remembering how the hell that happened.
But maybe somebody in the chat can look at it for us. But yeah, we definitely see Ellie at her darkest in this. It starts off when they end up putting her on the slab. And it kind of starts off when she's in the cell. The whole breaking his hand, and she just has that moment where it becomes very clear where she's not going to bend to this guy at all. Oh. She like you said, when she looks at him and says, "My name is Ellie. Tell him it's Ellie that broke your fucking fingers." She is another level of badass. You're not gonna break her. You're gonna have to kill her if you want to get rid of her. And they certainly try.
I love that he still shoots back at her like, "Huh? So what'd you say? Little tiny pieces." I'm like, "Fuck!" I'm like, "Damn, he can hit punches too." Like, God damn it, it's so frustrating. That does happen. The
back and forth between those two was great. I mean, neither one of them were giving in. It gets to the point you realize the only way that this can end is how it does end. Now,
one of you's gonna die.
Yeah, Ellie gets put on the slab. David's finally had enough of shit. He decides he's gonna carve her up and serve her as little Ellie fillets. And so James is trying to hold her down while David is getting ready to take the first whack with the meat cleaver. And she says, and she finally comes out with the truth to kind of buy her some time. She goes, "I'm infected. You can't eat me." And they're like, "No way." And she says, "Look at my wrist." What does she say? She says, "And you are too." They pull up her wrist. They see her scar from the bite, completely healed over. And then she says, "Now you are too." And he looks at his hand and he's bitten.
Yeah, because she bit him when she got pulled out. Yeah.
Yeah, and they have no idea what her particular situation is, her being immune. All they know is that she's got signs of infection and she just bit him. And so they're obviously a little confused in the moment. James looks at her and says, "Hey, David, you're infected now, buddy. This is a problem."
But I do like how he's like, no, fuck. You can see him kind of. That's the first thing you maybe see David kind of hesitate, like, shit. And he's like, "No, wait a minute." Yeah, and that thing that does happen in the game. James does look at it and he's like, he's like, that can't be. And he's like, that looks pretty fucking real to me, man. And I'm like, yeah. Now, see, this is where I was like, the game kind of gave it a little more of like believability because I was thinking about like how the game is kind of like comparing a book to like a show. I'm like, there's more in it, obviously, than you put into a show or movie, which always tends to happen, of course. But like I said, there was a moment where they got into an attack. They got attacked. So David went through a fight with Ellie with these infected. So like he knows like, oh, well, he doesn't know. He behind his back, she could have got bit and didn't even know about it. And then she spends maybe, I don't know if it's maybe a day, like enough time in that cage where it's like, oh, maybe she hadn't turned yet, but if she had gotten bitten, and then it would have been that gives him more like, oh, wait a minute. It makes you stop and think for a second. But I still like how it played out. I'm like, I don't know. Having them being attacked, it's kind of like that kind of gives it a little more weight that, oh, she could have gotten attacked and bitten. And while in David's little cell, hell in the cell, is left to sit there with her infection. And then getting bit. It's kind of like the tainted meat from Walking Dead. Tainted meat! You're eating tainted meat!
Mad cow.
Mm-hmm.
Mad Ellie. But yeah, he for some reason, I still don't know why, if only to scare her for the moment. Now, because remember, at this point, David has no idea either. He isn't 100% sure what's going on. All he knows is he's been bitten by someone who's showing signs of infection, so he's got a lot going through his mind at the moment.
Well, you wonder if he was trying to call her bluff. Even though he just got thrown that card, he was kind of like, no fucking way.
Yeah. So he decides to drop the cleaver rather, next to her head on the cutting board, leaving it there while trying to assess the situation. She grabs the cleaver and buries it deep into James's neck, eliminating him. And I like I said, as much as I would love to have kept him around, I think he would have been an interesting person to get some more screen time out of. Boy, what a death that was.
Yeah, as soon as I saw the situation, I'm like, oh no, Joel's gonna be that's funny. She's gonna end up killing Joel. Though. Yeah, it does.
It made sense. It made sense for the show, and it was a great scene. But again, it's Ellie not taking shit. I mean, she has kind of fed off Joel's bravery and his absolute willingness to do what needs to be done in the moment to do stuff just like that. I mean, she's channeling Joel through this whole episode. I think
she's resourceful. Like, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I mean, David lets go for that fucking split second to like look at his hand, and he let go of her. I'm like, oh, that's it. Boom, there she goes. And then he pulls out the gun and chases her down and out to the little cozy diner or whatever the hell that was in the lodge. So, yeah, that was a goddamn. I was like, because when I thought Troy Baker was going to be David, I'm like, oh, if you give him that death, oh, that's going to be fucking cool. But no, I'm like, still, I'm not mad. That's still a hell of a that's a good one because you're not expecting it. I mean, I hate to be like, oh, I was waiting for it because I knew that was going to happen. As soon as he lets that knife go and lets her go, it's on. And she's getting the fuck out. That's almost like some Texas Chainsaw levels of like when they're trying to beat her with the hammer and they let go of her that 1 second. She's like, bye, goodbye. Jumps out the fucking window and runs. That's your moment. Take it.
Yeah, and then on into the restaurant after she escapes. Obviously, James has been taken care of at that point. His death was pretty swift.
Bye, Joel.
Buried about 6 inches into the side of his neck. But then obviously she runs away and David goes after her. It was very interesting once they get into the diner area, the dining room, where this final confrontation all kinds of takes place. She throws a log at him trying to defend herself and sets the whole place on fire. So they're kind of doing this whole thing whilst the place is burning, which I thought was actually really cool. A really cool effect on
it's a cool visual.
But also, it's one of the things I noticed about this is like it's almost like they're both hunting one another over the course of this thing. I mean, at first you kind of get the feeling like Ellie's just trying to hide, but then she grabs the other knife and she's ready to go. She knows that she doesn't have Joel there in the moment. She's got to deal with this herself. It's really hunter versus hunter, not hunter versus prey, either one of them on either side. I thought that was kind of an amazing way that they shot this whole thing. What do you think of the way that whole confrontation finally happened?
And I was going to say, that's exactly how it feels in the game. It almost feels cat and mouse, but it's almost like a cat and a cat. I mean, really. This guy and then this little girl, like I said, when we were seeing that scene right outside the cage, I was looking behind. I mean, see, I'm also scanning the room too. I'm looking right behind David. I'm like, David, behind your head is about 7 pieces of cutlery on that wall. I mean, he even does say, he's like, if I let you out, put that knife in your hand, you're gonna stick me. I'm like, well, fuck yeah, I would. The hell? I'll take any one of those off that wall and stab you. Jesus. But that gave me, because I mean, my God, that is such a hard. It's kind of hard at first in the game because you're just tiptoeing around each other, trying to not, you're both trying to take swings, but you're just trying to outplay the other one while the place is burning to the ground. You are kind of like hiding, and like I said, you don't have Joel. I think Ellie, when she runs out of the room in the game, she sees her switchblade like on this this little shelf before she leaves. She just like grabs it, so you have that at least. So it's kind of the same thing. And yeah, I'm like, you got to use your wits, man. You got to be like really careful. You got to dip around him. You got to take, because there's like throwables in the game. You get like a brick or a bottle. So around the bar, you can find stuff. You got to throw him. You got to stun him. You got to run, just stab him. You just got to keep taking swings at him until eventually you wear him down. Which, I mean, I'm sure we're gonna talk about the big moment here, but yeah, once you wear him down enough, you stab him enough times and wrestle him to the ground. Then it's fucking on. That like shot for shot, like I got that same feeling of like, oh crap, I remember being chased by this guy almost 10 years ago now. That game came out, and it's like, God, it's such a terrifying moment. But you feel kind of like, okay, well, I've got this little knife. I'm gonna stab your stupid ass when I get you.
Yeah, and eventually, of course, they end up meeting right there in the middle of the dining room, and they have their big one-on-one confrontation. In the midst of their struggle, the butcher knife ends up falling to the floor under a table, and while Ellie is struggling with him, she does get her hand on the knife and ends up giving him a good whack and gets on top of him. And boy, talk about ground and pound. If you're an MMA fan, she is on top of him. And this picture that I've been showing off and on, this is the aftermath.
God,
I mean, she gets on top of him and just whack, whack, whack. She whacks away like a serial killer. It was visceral watching this 14-year-old girl just destroy this guy who obviously is a terrible person. We don't blame her at all.
No,
but I mean, this is
rage.
This is Ellie at her darkest point. And I remember watching this and just kind of thinking, and like out loud, I was just like, "Damn!" I was like, I couldn't think of any other way to vocalize what I had just seen. And when this scene happens, and she just kind of like, when it's all said and done, she stopped turning his face into ground mush, and she kind of finally collects herself again, and she realizes that the danger for the moment is over, with the exception of the fire, of course. That just kind of coming back into herself after being in that strange zone. I was speechless. I didn't know how to I didn't know how to vocalize what I was feeling in that moment for her. What an insane moment that was. I mean, her at her darkest. I mean, again, this entire episode is all about her not having help, being 100% alone in the world. And I was actually listening to the little bit of the after show that they have after all these episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And they even said they did not want it to be one of those scenes where right at the last second, Joel kicks in the door, eliminates the
action hero,
saves her.
Ooh,
they didn't want that action hero moment.
No.
They wanted this to be her kind of coming out in a manner of speaking. And boy, was it in every way, shape, and form it could have been. It was just brutal.
Like I said, that's the fever pitch. And again, I'm like, even though I know it's coming, I'm so excited. I think I had my mouth open a little bit too. And I was like, holy shit, Jesus. Like seeing it though. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Even though you get someone like me that you're doing this for people who have played the game, but people who haven't, it's still got to hit both of you. And I'm just like, good fucking God, watching her like, that's like straight up, that's releasing that anger on this guy. I mean, if I was in that cage too, you'd have a lot of pent up rage, and especially, I mean, that's when you see that guy completely unhinged, and now he, like you said, now he's yelling, like, how'd you do it? Are you just that fucking special? Like, you don't even know what I could do. You don't know how good I am. And I'm like, oh Jesus, calm down. Then like pinning her to the ground, and like I'm like, oh gee, yep, nope, you're a creep. Like play, and it's the same way in the game. Like you're crawling, and you can see the knife out there. You're trying to grab it. He kicks her over, like holds her down, and like she's like trying to reach up and like grab the knife. And I'm like, as soon as you get your fingers around it, boom. That's a hell of a moment for both the show and the game. And then she's still in shock. It's like, yeah, she may have kind of came back to. Oh well, I hate to quote Eminem, but she snapped back to reality. But I mean, holy shit, there went gravity. She's still probably in shock. I mean, she walks out of the building like, probably so visibly shaken. And I like that it is still the same way. Like, I mean, it's a little sooner. I mean, like she's still like trying to swing at this guy in the game. Joel, like that's what I'm saying. It doesn't happen that way. Like Joel doesn't get there until it's already happened, and he grabs onto her and she's like screaming, "Get off me." She doesn't even know it's him. Like she's still in that blind rage. She thinks it's some other guy or something. She's still, she's not okay. And like I said, then there's that moment where it clicked, where she finally, and he's like, it's me, it's okay. And then like I said, and then all of her emotions come out and she just falls right into Joel. And again, that's a hell of a goddamn moment.
Yeah, it was a pretty insane third act of this episode. I mean, all over the place, action, drama.
David all over the place now. Too.
Yeah, David all over the place. And another one of the things is you find out just kind of the length of David's depravity. This is a scene that I'd kind of forgotten about just now. As Joel makes his way into the town and starts to look for Ellie, he makes his way into this area where they have strung up human beings like they were deer, and they were being dressed like deer. It's like you see 3 human bodies hanging upside down with their heads not there, and they were being drained of blood like they were a couple of deer that they had shot out in the woods. So it kind of makes me wonder, it's like, was this guy only eating people who had died, or was he just like saying, oh yeah, this person must have wandered off in the night and didn't want to live with us anymore, when in reality they're strung up getting bled out so they can become part of next week's stew?
We thought that like, oh, maybe the meat they ate might have been that girl's dad.
That's what I thought.
Because I'm like,
I think they inferred that.
Yeah, because I'm like, he says, oh, we'll bury him in the spring. I'm like, well, how are you going to explain that till spring? I mean, Jesus, what's the point? And I'm like, oh, because by then you could be like, oh, we can't find his body, or it's already been taken off by animals or some shit. Well, all of you apparently, we had him 2 months ago. He was the special. Like, Jesus, that's what's scary, is that you can just, it's frustrating because like he can explain that. Well, what's the thing you always say, Frank? You're one line of dialogue away from explaining everything. So whether it's a lie or not, but
well, I don't know if you noticed the timing of some of these shots, but the guy walks in with that bus tub full of meat, and he says, yeah, this is venison. And there's camera shots that let you know. I mean, the way they linger on it, the way that they show her kind of nonchalantly, okay, whatever. And then as they're all eating is when the guy walks in with the deer that Ellie shot.
I was like, oh,
so it's like, wait a minute, that deer is not this plate, because that deer is still over there. So, and why nobody that's sitting there knows that, I have no idea. Maybe they had some other deer in there that from before.
Well, like he said, only a few people do know. They probably didn't. I mean, he wouldn't have just walked right in a central square and been like, "Hey, here's the deer. Look what I did." If he would have known, like, oh, what's everybody having? You know what I mean? And did you notice actually in that scene, like I love that they do this, but everybody who eats in this show, they eat like they've never eaten before, which I'm like, yeah, you probably haven't. You probably haven't eaten in a few days. And they're just going to town. But like, did you notice that David eats a little slower, but also he had like the biggest plate of food?
I did notice that he had like it looked like something was made in a restaurant.
He had like a whole,
everybody else has just got some dirty bowl full of a spoonful of stew, and they were just like shoveling it in, and he's sitting there eating like an aristocrat. I did think that was odd. I noticed that.
I was like, oh, of course we're gonna play that dynamic. And he's sitting at the table with that fucking girl who just lost her dad,
and is probably eating her dad.
Yeah, and,
and doesn't know it.
Yeah, and after just having smacked her to the ground and being like, I'm kidding. I even tried. I almost rolled my eyes when he's like, "Oh, you may not have your dad anymore, but you always have a father." I'm like, "Oh my god, is he really doing the God angle?" And he's like, "Oh no, it's me." I'm like, "Oh, you're a creep. God damn it."
Well, this is exactly what we'd expect him to say. I mean, he feels like he has to maintain control, not just over this entire group of people who he's convinced that they're his flock.
He did that in front of everybody.
Obviously at one point in this episode, you realize in his interactions with Ellie that he is moving into the David Koresh kind of area where he wants to start messing around with these young girls, and even mentions how he wasn't a man of God till afterwards. That he's always had a violent heart, so he was probably doing stuff like this before the outbreak.
Yeah, because it's enough of a line to make you think, oh, gee, because he said I struggled with something for a long time beforehand. I'm like, oh God, were you? You didn't just like learn this over the last 20 years. Like, no, I think you You were definitely a bad guy before. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So.
But yeah, and then of course Ellie, after dispatching David with several good meat cleaver blows to the face, she makes her way outside where Joel has finally made his way to Ellie and runs into her as she's trying to get away. And her not knowing that Joel's right there, she turns around and starts to fight back with just her fists and finally realizes that it's Joel. And there's this really great moment where it's like you can see right there in his face. He's looking at her, not knowing what just happened.
True.
Blood all over her face, doesn't know what she's been through at this point. And the worried father starts to take over.
Yeah.
And when he hugs her and calls her baby girl,
yeah,
the name that he called his daughter in the first episode. I mean, this whole thing about how he's been kind of rediscovering his fatherhood over the course of this entire season so far. I think he's finally gotten to that point. Their relationship's got to the point where he's starting to look at Ellie as a daughter, as someone he has to protect, which I think is going to play itself out in a pretty big way in the next episode. But yeah, I thought that was a fantastic way to end things, where he takes off his coat, puts it around her, and they just wander off into the wilderness towards the river. Hopefully back towards. I'm guessing they're probably going towards Salt Lake City. But if I were him, I might think about go ahead and heading back to Jackson for a little while, kind of regrouping,
bring the cavalry,
kind of get everything right again. I mean, if not to bring the cavalry, just to get healthy again. I mean, get some food in, you get healthy, let that belly wound finish healing up, let Ellie deal with her shit, because she's going to have some shit to deal with before we eventually, try to use her blood or whatever to make a cure for this thing. So bring
the communist cavalry back.
Yeah, but we're definitely well on our way to Salt Lake City now. But one of the things that I did notice about this is I was looking at it before we went live. This episode is actually tied for the lowest score of all the episodes that has been released yet on Rotten Tomatoes. If you can believe that.
Y'all don't know what you're talking about.
Do you know what the score is?
Is it like a percentage, like Rotten Tomatoes?
A percentage, yeah.
Out of 100?
Yeah.
53.
95.
Oh, okay.
It is
okay.
Tied,
excuse me.
It's tied for the lowest score on
I thought it was
Tomatoes
like stupid low for some reason.
But... A couple of the episodes, I don't have it in front of me. A couple of the episodes were at the hundreds. I think, and most of them hover around the 95, 97 mark. But the two lowest ones were the third or fourth episode, I forget, was a 95, and this one comes in at 95. But these are the two lowest scored episodes on Rotten Tomatoes. And apparently, up the recent number that I had seen, I don't know what it is now, 8.1 million viewers for this episode.
Very nice.
From when it aired to, I'm guessing, probably in the last 24 hours. And that's probably somewhere close to that, because most people are going to watch it within the first 48 hours of it airing. It came out Sunday. Yeah. So yeah, this show is going strong. It's definitely going strong. But we made a lot of hay a few weeks ago as we were going over the names of the episodes, and we note that they had not come out with a name for the last episode. It just had on Wikipedia anyway, it just had to be announced. Well, now they finally have released a name for the last episode. And the name of the last episode is Look for the Light, which I think is interesting. Because you had this saying that was very prominent in the first episode: when you're lost in the darkness, look for the light. And the first episode was called When You're Lost in the Darkness. And the last episode is called Look for the Light. So that phrase is kind of bookending this first season of the series. What do you read into that, Jeremy? I mean, you're way more in tune with the game, and you have a better idea as to where the story's going than I do. I mean, do you think that's significant? Is it telling you anything about where we're going?
Sorry, I'm not answering comments, but I'm putting that out there. Come on, we got a strong, capable, gay female character now. Y'all saw it happen. Saw it here live. Obviously we're going to, if that doesn't make it obvious, we're going to see the Fireflies. We're going to see Marlene again. And no, it's not another dead end. We're going to find the Fireflies. We're getting there to complete our mission of getting Ellie to these people, to their doctors, to be able to start working on a cure for this thing. So, I guess that's looking for the light in Salt Lake City. Because I mean, I don't know what the hell else Utah's doing. It's probably still boring, and I don't know if David wanted that many Ys, maybe he should have just set up shop in fucking Utah, not Northern Colorado. Like, what are you doing, man? You're in the wrong place.
I don't think he wants them as wives. I just think he's a pervert.
Well, I am not going to make any further comments on Mormonism. I don't want to. I'm not going there. Yeah, I don't want to. Like I said, I don't want to give too much away. Like I said, I know that's where we're going, and I keep saying it. One man army Joel. Trust me. I mean, I know it seems like, oh, this is logical. We're getting to completing our mission. I'm like, yes, but it is going to go off though, and I'm not going to say why or for how, but if you know, you know, and if you don't know, just wait a couple more days.
Yeah, I mean, and that brings us obviously to the commercial, the promo for the final episode. You've seen it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have looked into how the first game ends, and there
So
are a couple. I know roughly what's going to happen. I know it's not going to be a shot for shot remake in this episode.
Nah.
I would imagine not anyway. But I feel like it's going to be something very, very similar, especially thematically. There are a couple of scenes that I saw in the promo that let me know that it might end up going that direction. I mean, knowing what you know about how the first game ends and where we're at this point in the series, I mean, can you give us an idea without spoiling too much of what we can expect out of this next episode?
I feel like I'm on Talking Dead. Like, okay, a lot of gunfire. There's, I don't know. I feel like I'm one of the actors on the show. Like, I can't even say anything. God damn it, I'm not. Oh boy.
I mean, if you've got to spoil something, go ahead and spoil it. I mean, the game is how many years old now, so it's not like
I know, and I know. I'm like, I can sit here and tell you what happens, and I think I said this before we came on here. I'm like, I can tell you exactly what happens, and I mean, this has been a pretty faithful adaptation. That's why I hesitate to say anything, because about 95% of it has happened or has been pretty accurate. So, like I'm saying, I don't want to like quite just ruin it for everybody. We're gonna. I think I think Druckmann and or Craig Mazin has said we're gonna see people that get into situations that this will bring out things in you or make you do stuff for the people you love that's like you may not expect yourself to do. So, at this point, and now like even more time has passed. Now we're in spring, so now we've moved out of winter, and now we're in a different state. And I mean, all right, fine. You know what? There's gonna be giraffes. I'll just predict it / hopefully there's giraffes.
We need the giraffe shot. I think that would be a great way to kind of complete the season.
That's like, a wonderful.
As they get into Salt Lake City, the giraffe shot would be kind of awesome.
Well, because it is like right after. It's like I mean, think about it. When you're playing the game, you just hacked David's face to bits, and it cuts to black, and then it says spring, and I'm like, can I breathe now? I'm like, oh my god, can I breathe now? And then I think that's where that scene is, where they're walking down the road and he's explaining football to her. So it's kind of like, okay, are we okay? And it is still like very tense, like there's an elephant, or I guess I should say a giraffe in the room. That it's kind of like they're still like, it's like, yeah, we just went through that, and it's still probably lingering on their minds. I guess because Joel did see her doing that, because he like I said, she was still hacking away, and he came up to her like grabbed her and like said, stop. So and by that point, she probably told him what happened. So, and then like you get further into the city and you get some more backstory. I think Joel, I'm surprised they haven't really shown this much. There's a picture that Joel always had of him and Sarah. She's in her soccer uniform. She's got her ball and like a trophy up, and they're just like, typical dad and daughter picture. And I think he gets another copy of it from, I think, Maria. I think Ellie said like Maria gave her that copy of the picture and gave it to Joel, and he kind of just like you hear him just kind of sigh, like, oh, man, like looking at it again. And then you see the giraffes, and it's just such a really almost like Jurassic Park thing, like when they see the Brachiosaurus, and they're like, oh my god, this is cool. It's like a big cow. Such a nice moment. And then it all goes
But
to shit. It all goes to shit.
I'm really excited. The thumbnail for next week's show is clearly going to be her petting the giraffe. As long as I can get that shot, I think we'll be good. That's going to make a pretty killer thumbnail.
I'm good with that.
but before we get out of here, Jeremy, I don't know. Are you aware of this company? I think it's called Rise Health Foods. They've come out with a new coffee made of mushrooms.
Oh, is it cordyceps?
Different kinds of mushrooms. And this is the ad that I found, and I feel like this is probably. I'm looking through this, and I'm like, okay, it's got some coconut shit. You can see at the bottom some actual coffee. That's fine because you're making coffee. Never got a mushrooms, but I look at the cordyceps, and I'm like, has this company not been? Does nobody at this company watch Last of Us?
Clearly, you haven't been aware of what's been going on. Well, it is funny. We can't,
not sponsored, by the way, not sponsored. I just found this. I was getting ready. I was putting the link out on Facebook, and this ad out of nowhere, as I was scrolling, just kind of came up, and I was looking at it. I was like,
targeted.
Honestly, my first thought was this was a joke.
No,
I was like, this has got to be a plant from HBO.
Plant.
And I'm like, are you kidding me? And I actually clicked on it, and no, it is a real product. That is a real made out of mushrooms, and one of the mushrooms is cordyceps. And dude, if I could show you guys the comments one by one, just people, are you not watching the show? It's like, do you not know what's happening?
We need that GIF. Somebody should I say it? Somebody should say it. Somebody should tell them. I mean, if they don't know, I'm like, you just missed out on a big marketing opportunity right there. That's funny.
Or maybe they knew.
Maybe.
Because let's face it, I mean, it wasn't like nobody knew this show was being made until episode 1 dropped. We were talking about it a long time ago.
Yeah.
So maybe somebody who worked at Rise, works at this Rise Health Foods or whatever it is, said, hey, you know what? We can have some cordyceps mushroom in this coffee that we're producing, and that'll be a great marketing gimmick for when it comes out. Because we'll be dropping this right about the time that Last of Us is going to be on HBO and hopefully blowing up the internet. So it'll be a great advertising ploy.
I mean, we can. I mean, it is a weird it's like, to me, that is still a weird hurdle. It's like when you get to a ledge, your mind still weirdly goes, hey, jump. I'm like, I don't want to try it, but I'm kind of like, but I kind of want to. I'm like, I've seen this show. I've played this game.
I kind of want to know.
I'm like, I know we can, and it is weirdly, it's like, it's got, I don't know if it's got like health benefits, but I'm like, it's a natural thing for you. And I'm like, yeah, we can consume cordyceps. It's like any other mushroom. Well, it's not like any other mushroom. It's actually kind of horrifying. If you're an ant or a spider.
Well, actually, one of the comments on here was somebody who was trying to sound smart, but really, I don't think they got the joke. They were just like, actually, there's several different kinds of cordyceps and blah, blah, blah.
There are,
like,
but
you obviously aren't watching the show. You're not in on the joke.
No, there are, and I know we can consume them because it doesn't actually affect humans because we can't. We don't have the same type of
yes
of body structure or temperature. I think it really was true that it's about temperature. It's like, yeah, it's not going to do anything to us. It doesn't just worm its way into your brain and mushroom out and
turn into a clicker,
kill everybody in the neighborhood.
Like that,
yeah. If you see me climbing a light pole and then I just latch on for the next week and then my head explodes open, then you can be concerned. But and I guess I saw a TikTok of this woman. I walked right outside into my backyard. Look at this beech tree. It's got this crap growing on. She's like, look, she's like, you follow the branch, follow it up right there. Boom, right there. There's an ant right there with his head split open with the shit crawling out of it. I'm like, she's like, it's right there in my backyard. I'm like, well, and she apparently grows like cordyceps in her basement, like, on her own, and they use it for stuff like that. So, but I don't know. You know what? I'm not coming to your house and you just be like, hey, you want some coffee? Fuck no. I know exactly what it is.
Some mushroom coffee? No.
No.
I'm okay. I'm good. But again, not sponsored.
Is that a steak, Frank, or is that Jimmy from next door?
Yeah. The next door neighbor kids have been pissing me off lately. You never know.
Oh, we're having the neighbors for dinner. What?
For dinner.
and dinner and coffee. Oh, son of a bitch.
Punctuation matters.
Right.
But that seems like a good place to start wrapping things up. What do you got going on the internet, my friend?
My favorite piece of entertainment, which is The Last of Us, honestly. That next week, that's it. For season 1. So we'll be here, and I assume we'll be back here again Tuesday to wrap this up, and I cannot wait. I think I try to think about it more. I'm like, I think the only thing I can really say is it's not going to be as easy as you think. I mean, actually, what Joel said, it's a little more complicated than that. I'll leave it at that. Like, it's not just going to be, okay, we're going to walk in, do, draw blood, boom, it's over. Maybe your red flag is there is a second game.
Yeah.
That may be your red flag that, maybe, something happened. Like I said, it's not going to be an easy walk in the park, is all I'll say.
Yeah, no doubt.
But I'm here doing that. We're here on Thursdays doing more reviews because now we're getting double doses of Daddy Pascal with Mandalorian.
He's on the two hottest television shows out there right now.
He's doing
and they're going at the same time.
Yeah. He's out here doing it.
It is the age of Pedro Pascal. And it is the age of Jonathan Majors. Those two guys are the hottest thing in anything acting right now.
I'm here for it, honestly. I think I was scrolling through and I saw a fucking, was it World of Warcraft ad with Pedro Pascal? And I'm like, why not? I don't care. I don't care. Why not? I'd listen to him tell me about World of Warcraft. Whatever. He could, you know what? He could be the spokesperson for that damn coffee company. Go hit him up. I'm sure he'll sell that to you. To the masses.
It'd be great. He'd be like, no, these are good cordyceps, guys. Check out this coffee. I promise. These are the good ones.
I mean, come on. Dress him up like Joel and have him drink the coffee. He loves coffee, remember?
Well,
Jesus.
Yeah, true. And Tex does say in the chat, he goes, I bet after The Last of Us, cordyceps mushroom consumption has shrunk vastly.
Or it could have gone up. That could have gone either way, I think. Yeah. We might be the smart ones, even though it's not going to affect you. You might still want to stay away from it because you don't want to be that one.
But as for me, you can find me here, let's see, next Tuesday, breaking down the last episode with Jeremy for The Last of Us, which has been a fantastic show. And probably after we end up breaking down the episode, we'll probably spend some time giving just some overall thoughts on this season as a whole as well. So,
and
I'll back Tuesday to do that.
And I'll start playing the game. Because if you haven't experienced the game, you can come experience it with me because I will never get tired of playing that game. So now I have both iterations of this story, and I'm happy. Makes me happy.
Nice. And then, of course, we'll be back here Thursday going over a couple of news stories and breaking down episode 2 of The Mandalorian, the other Pedro Pascal juggernaut that is taking Disney Plus by storm. First episode is very, very good. We broke that down last Thursday. Go check that out. Also, if you guys could, I'm going to start putting a link in the description as well. I'm trying to grow our presence on Rumble. I haven't really been, what I've been doing is I've not been doing any live streams there. Usually a couple days after we put a video out on YouTube, a live stream, I'll just download it and kick it over to Rumble. But I'm trying to grow a bit of a presence there so that we can start also live streaming on that platform the same time we're live streaming on this. But I have to hit a certain subscriber goal. It's much lower than YouTube's requirements, of course. But so if you get a chance, I'm going to start putting the link to our Rumble channel on there. We'll be they're not going to be anything new. Again, these live streams will probably be going to there as well eventually, but I'm just kind of putting everything over there kind of after we air it on here live. So if you go support us on there as well, Rumble tends to be, after your channel starts to grow, but they tend to be a little more generous with their content creators than YouTube is for sure. But also don't forget, what is it, Saturday, we're going to be doing the Derailed reunion show. So you'll see me over on the Derailed gaming channel as me and the old gang from Sunday nights are going to be over there getting together. It's just basically going to be a fun hangout. Drew decided he wanted to dip back into the podcasting thing for one night just to celebrate the 5th anniversary of Derailed. So we'll be over there Saturday night just for a hangout. So come by and have some fun and tell Drew how much you miss him and convince him that we need to start doing the new stuff over on his channel a little more regularly again. But until then, that's all for now. Thank you guys for coming to hang out. We very much appreciate it. We will see you guys on Thursday. Adios.